different cycles of boom, cycles of doom, and all of that. So let me introduce my guests. The guest at the table here joining me is Dr. Tochukwu Nwachukwu, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Preston Consult. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
The MD of Carrier Asset Management, Johnson Chukwu, is joining me via Skype from Lagos. Mr. Chukwu, good to see you again today. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Nancy, for having me.
What a day, oh. Really, what a day. Some few days. Let me start with Dr. Nwachukwu. What would you say that yesterday was driven by? Perhaps fear, panic, or what? We saw global markets everywhere, suffering massive losses since the financial crisis for oil price since 1991. So you're taking a look at all falling in almost the most in a generation. You understand what I mean? What would you say that yesterday was really driven by? Because we saw our own markets here also reacting, 2.4% in the red. So it was a bloody Monday across the world.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of all of them. Panic, fear, and yes, and the market, like you said, reacted not just in Nigeria but globally. So what started it, I also listened to your introduction, was the fact that we've had coronavirus since November, December last year, and it has impacted significantly on China, which is the second largest economy in the world. And the idea was it has affected so many different indicators, including oil prices, and not surprisingly too, because the demand in China production has been reducing, and then that has affected the demand for raw materials, including crude, and because of that, crude oil prices had been falling. However, I think what triggered Monday's reaction was the meeting of OPEC that held on Friday, which didn't reach any agreement. And so the non-OPEC members, led by Russia, refused to cut production as suggested by by OPEC. And so I think fallout was on Saturday. Saudi announced that it was going to cut significantly its prices, and it was also going to ramp up its production. Russia countered by also stating the same, that it was going to do the same. And so the markets opened on Monday with investors panicking and running to safe havens. And it wasn't surprising, like you mentioned, that the oil prices fell
close to 30%. About
30%, and the last time we had something like that
barrel.
was the first day when the Gulf War started in 1991. And that's about almost 30 years ago. And the stock prices was hit across the globe, in many places up to 8%, 7 in some, others 5 in some. In Nigeria, like you mentioned, 2.4%. And yes, also it's definitely coming home to Nigeria. I think this is even worsened by the fact that our benchmark crude oil price for the budget is at $57 per barrel. We are at about 35, 36 currently, which is not sustainable at all. Even that 57, we still had a huge budget deficit. So if you now have crude oil at 30, in fact, if it falls below 30, we'll be in trouble, because the deep offshore, the cost of producing 1 barrel is about $30 per barrel in the deep offshore. In the onshore, it's about $15 per barrel, so we might still be able to manage. But there are huge implications for Nigeria if this is sustained, this fall is sustained over the long run.
Okay. Let me bring in Mr. Chukwu here before we go to the implications for the country, because you're still seeing that global markets are seemingly bouncing a bit back, but not as much as the fall that we noticed yesterday. Like I said earlier, it was a global market madness yesterday, in as much as our own market also participated. I didn't even know where to calibrate our market. Is it because of the global reaction, or we had our own reaction in the sense that foreign investors were also exiting? But what do you think about what happened yesterday? Was there really a difference with what happened yesterday and 2008? Is there really a difference? Because I remember I had started business journalism even as at 2008. I was in the deep of it in 2008. But was there a difference between what we experienced yesterday and 2008, which was like 12 years ago?
Yes, there was. The difference is that the world is now more integrated than it was in 2008. And as you could see, virtually all the markets in the entire world, all the stock exchanges suffered severe losses. I mean, the U.S. markets, S&P 500, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, they all lost more than 7%. The London Stock Exchange lost more than 7%, similar to almost all the European markets. And that also got to as far as Nigeria, where our market lost 2.41%. Because the global economy is far more integrated in the world in 2008. But beyond that, for the first time in the history of oil in the oil market, we saw what we call double whammy. We saw a demand shock and a supply shock. The demand shock originated from the coronavirus that reduced the demand China was making and led to a significant reduction in demand, which automatically led to an oversupply without any injection of additional capacity. But with the price war that evolved between between Saudi Arabia and Russia, we now also witness a supply shock where Saudi Arabia is threatening to increase, like you rightly said, its production to as high as 12 million barrels a day. Currently, it's doing 9.7 million barrels a day. So if you move to 12 million barrels a day, it will be adding about like 2.3 million barrels into the market on a daily basis for a market that's already suffering from demand shock. And that sends alarm signals around the world. So the market crash we saw yesterday, the market meltdown we saw yesterday was largely driven by the trade war or crude oil price war that evolved between Russia and Saudi Arabia.
Now, let me stick with you a bit. Do you see love and peace coming back between Russia, which is a de facto OPEC member, part of an ally, OPEC Plus, like they say? Do you see peace and love now? Because love and peace goes together between Russia and Saudi Arabia. What will it take to show up oil prices? What will it take to bring these two giants back to the table? Because just like you said, with your own analysis, there may just be dangerous times ahead if this continues, because like I said earlier, Saudi Arabia has said this morning, Saudi Aramco, which is like, Saudi Aramco is like the NNPC, our own NNPC, so I'm explaining it to our viewers to understand. They said that they would pump about 12.3 million barrels per day of oil into the economy, global economy in April. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. Peace and love, which is
Absolutely.
a very two scarce commodities right now in the world, especially even here in Nigeria.
Well, I believe common sense will eventually prevail. The reality is that nobody wins a price war. Not in any industry, not in the oil and gas industry. Like I said, most of all is coming at the point when we are suffering from a demand shock because there's a quarter in demand by China and a lot of other countries that are demanding crude as input materials, as energy source. So at first point, you really can't afford this trade war. But even in the normal market, nobody gains from a trade war. So I believe common sense will prevail eventually. If Saudi Arabia succeeds in pushing and pumping 2 million barrels a day, oil price could go as low as $10 per barrel. And I don't think that would be in the interest of Saudi Arabia. Remember that Russia is not in as much weak position. Russia has the reserve of more than $500 billion. But beyond that, Russia supplies gas to several Western countries. So Russia can actually survive on its gas supply to Western countries. So it's not in the best interest of Saudi Arabia to actually explode this nuclear bomb that is threatening to explode, because it will consume not just Saudi Arabia or Russia, it will consume us, even here, those of us in Nigeria, or even other African countries like Angola that depend on the export of crude for the sustenance of the economy. But again, even economies that are not dependent on crude as export commodity, they will also suffer the trickle-down effect of an economic meltdown that could be triggered by such price war. So I think it's not in anybody's interest, and I want to believe that common sense will prevail eventually. They will all realize that we will all be losers in a price war or the type they are threatening to unleash on all of us.
Mr. Chukwu, I may beg to disagree with you, but I'll come back to you in a bit while I give you seconds to ruminate around that in terms of who benefits during a price war. Because for us as a producer of crude oil, we're saying, okay, we don't want crude oil to go as low as it is going right now. But for some economies that will benefit when oil price is low, they'll say, let them just kill themselves. I think countries like Mexico and all of that, whereby if you see a lower crude oil price, that means that the petrol price will go lower, and I'll come to that in a bit. That means that even this subsidy, what happens to our subsidy? What happens to our petrol prices at the pump? Yes, I'm watching those things, which we're going to talk in a bit. So you did talk about the implications for Nigeria. Let's really move now to home. What are the implications? The president set up a committee yesterday, Minister of Finance, CBN Governor, NNPC, GMD. When I saw him sitting, I said, yes, he will be there. You know, I'm like, okay, the chicken has come home to roost. In fact, you could even see it. I pitied the Minister of Finance yesterday when I was looking at her. And I was like, this woman is in real deep, trouble. I don't want to be her right now.
Yeah, actually, last week, she came up to the Minister of Finance, that is, to talk about the possibility of reviewing the budget because of the low oil prices. At that time, it was at $53 per barrel. Now it's at 35, 36. So you can imagine if we're talking about reviewing the budget, possibility of reviewing the budget at 53, how much more so at 35, 36. So the implications for Nigeria are there. The most immediate one is the fact that it's going to hit our revenues. Government revenues is accounted for by oil revenue accounts for about between 50 and 60% of government revenue. And they are the first things that are going to be hit by this oil price shock. And then, of course, when the revenues are hit, it will affect the budget. The budget as it is now is unimplementable. And so what will happen is the government will have to review the budget downwards. As we know, the recurrent budget is actually non-elastic. And so you can't reduce that one. So capital budget is what will suffer usually. And that's the capital budget we've been saying is already very low, at lower than 30% of total expenditure. So the expenditure will have to come down. The other possibility will be to borrow. Just last week, the Senate approved $22.7 billion for over the medium term. It's not going to be borrowed in one day, of course. But the issue is that has already been planned without this oil price shock.
And that has made our debt profile go up.
It's made our debt profile jump up significantly. But the issue is we can either reduce expenditure significantly or ramp up debt to be able to maintain the same level of expenditure, which, well, I don't know, but I don't think it's in the interest of the country. Our debt, because our debt is already as it was before when oil prices were above the benchmark, I felt was already unsustainable. Now, with the current oil prices, which Goldman Sachs has predicted that if the coronavirus and the oil price war is sustained over the next couple of weeks or months, that the oil prices could fall as low as $20 per barrel. And so if that happens, then we are actually in for a root shock. So in terms of implications, first, there has to be a reduction in expenditure. There will be, and that is caused by the reduction in revenue. When there's reduction in oil revenue, it will affect expenditure. It will affect also our foreign reserves, which will have implications for exchange rates. Yeah. You can try to fight and hold the dollar at a certain exchange rate, but you can only do that for so long. So there's also the risk of depreciation, devaluation in the offing. There is also and of course, when you look at the combination of lower revenues, lower foreign reserves, lower aggregate demand in Nigerian economy, and lower expenditure, those are all the ingredients for another recession.
Okay, Mr. Chukwu, let me come to you right now. Dr. Tochukwu has actually given us what he thinks the implication for the Nigerian economy will be. But my question to you is, because he did mention earlier that if oil price falls to 30, isn't it that we can still muster it?
Yeah, because part of the oil, some of the oil is produced onshore at about $15 per barrel, but the deep offshore is about $30.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Chukwu, how much oil price drop will be digestible? Would we be able to digest as a country? How much oil price drop would we be able to digest as a country? Then the B part of my question is, how can Nigeria get through this volatility in the immediate term? Because Doctor has said these will be the implications. What should we do in the immediate term, if there is any, for us to go through this wilderness? Is it a wilderness now?
Let me add your first question, which is that there are countries that will benefit from a crash in oil price. That's the question you left behind. So we need to address that. You know, ultimately what happens in the global economy, if the demand sources go into a recession, the suppliers will also go into recession. And I'll tell you what happens. Assuming oil price remains low, countries that are consumers, not exporters of crude, will also suffer. And this is how they will suffer. The demand for their export commodities will crash, because some of those export commodities are going to oil exporting countries. So in effect, global demand will decline materially. And once the global demand declines materially, it will affect even all the producers. And that's actually why when one major economy, as a major consumer, goes into a recession, it could affect other countries. Like, for instance, if a country like US goes into a recession, you know it affects other countries. So should oil producing countries, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and a number of them go into difficulties, those countries that are exporting commodities or finished goods to those other countries will also suffer. So you will find that the likes of Mexico will all be in a crisis, assuming global demand decreases significantly. Second transmission channel is as it relates to the banking system. A lot of banks are exposed to oil producing companies or oil-related companies globally. And if you saw what happened in the market yesterday, the major, the companies that suffered most in terms of their prices were oil-producing companies and oil-related companies. Yes. So if oil price remains very low, those companies may find it difficult to meet their financial obligations. Because of the level of exposure of the financial system to such oil companies, the oil industry, you could actually see financial system meltdown, which could lead to this loan default. And once you have a financial system meltdown, it will affect credit expansion, credit disbursement, and will affect global economy. So there are two major channels of transmission. One is decrease in global demand, and two, a possible crisis in the financial system. Then back to your question, what price of oil
can we digest? Can we chew and digest?
Yes. Or at what level should if oil price drops to that will have a crisis? I think at below $50, we will struggle. And I'll tell you why. If you look at our budget and look at 2020 budget, of the 2020 budget, about 7.3 trillion naira is budgeted as recurrent expenditure. That's what you call in accounting non-discretionary expenses. You have about 3 trillion naira as personnel cost only. Then you have 2.4 trillion naira as debt service. Then you have now 1.7 trillion naira as other overhead expenses of the government. So for you to achieve that level of expenditure, which is non-discretionary, before we talk of capital expenditure budget of 2.4 trillion, then you must have a revenue of at least 7 trillion naira. Last year, even at oil price at about $57, $58 per barrel, total revenue of the federal government by the end of September was 2.9 trillion naira. Total expenditure, January to September last year, was 5.9 trillion naira, a deficit of about 3 trillion naira. So should oil price remain at $40, $50, then you can see clearly that we will not be able to earn enough revenue to meet non-discretionary expenses. So the government will struggle to pay salaries. The government will struggle to pay debt service, that's interest on debt. The government will struggle to pay its overhead before we talk of the capital expenditure.
Okay,
So,
Mr. Chukwu, very quickly, because we have 5 minutes to the end of the program. I'm afraid we just lost a lot of time when we started because of the loss of audio. We had a technical issue. But the question to ask, which I asked you, just give me your answers in few seconds. What measures do we put in place right now to check the volatility, immediate measures? Are there any, just that as we are seeing everything right now, are there any that we can take quickly? Because the Minister of Finance says that they will get back to the President, I think, today and tomorrow. Are there some of the things that you will propose to them? Should there be some things we should see on the report that they will take back to the President and I will say, oh, okay, yes, this is what you guys should do in the immediate term?
Okay, they can't control the volatility, but they can adjust the structure of the economy. One of which they should today decide to go to the player and say, let's take out the subsidy on petroleum products. If we take out the subsidy on petroleum products, you are going to cut down on our consumption of petroleum products. You are going to preserve part of the earnings from crude, though oil price have dropped. Because you will now be able to, because what happens is that when we earn income from crude sales, we pay the significant part of that importing refined petroleum products. You're also going to stimulate the start of local refineries. So that is number one item they should go back to the government with. Second thing is that we must adjust our exchange rate in tandem with changes in our macroeconomic environment, particularly our foreign exchange earnings. We've seen a deficit balance of trade, and it will worsen this year. So if you hold on to where we are today at the current exchange rate, we will be compelled to adjust at a larger volume or a larger magnitude if we delay beyond now. So we must have some level of flexibility in our exchange rate management. Those two they must take back to the President.
Okay. Dr. Nwachukwu, quickly, are there some other things apart from what Mr. Chukwu has said?
Yes,
proposals for
maybe not in the immediate
government?
term, but definitely I think apart from the reduction or removal of the oil subsidy, would also be checking leakages. These are some things they can do in the short term. There are several leakages in the system. We could look at, for instance, the cost of production of oil is one of it. Can it go down? The other is the revenue and expenditure of the main revenue generator of the country, the NNPC, to look at them. Look at also the operating surpluses of the government-owned enterprises. That's also a major source of leakage because a lot of them virtually spend everything they bring in. So those are some of the things that government can look at in the short term. Of course, in the medium to longer term, there are issues of diversification of the economy and other issues that are more structural in nature.
Okay, this will be a final question to both of you. So let me go to Mr. Chukwu. Do you think that we are in a much better shape right now? And I'm asking that question with all intent and purposes. I have an understanding of why I'm asking that question. If we are in a much better shape than when the economy entered the recession in 2016, why I'm asking that question is because it seems that the financial system seems to be strong right now. Like I did ask at my first question, if there was a difference between 2008 and now, we know what happened in 2008. Financial system collapsed around the world and all of that. Are we in a much better shape than the alarm that we are sounding? Or we may just be having 2 recessions in 4 years. In fact, that was my greatest fear yesterday. Not that I was surprised. If we could be having another recession lurking around the corner, if we don't, there's a if, that if we don't do what we're supposed to do. And I remember you, Mr. Chukwu, saying that your projection for this year is 3.5% economic growth. Are you revising it? All these things now, have they spoiled your prediction? Quickly.
You know, projections are based on information available at that point.
Thank you.
It's meeting factors that are involved between then and now. But back to your question, I think without being sounding alarmist, we are in a very weak position compared to where we were in 2016 when we went into an economic recession. We had a stronger buffer. We had a stronger central bank. Unfortunately, the buffers we have are now weaker in the sense that, look, we no longer even have anything in SSP. I think it's about 400 million or so. The foreign reserve, what we put today are gross reserve. And gross reserve is different from the net reserve. I don't want to go into those details, so
okay.
I don't want to sound alarming. But in summary, our situation is weaker because even the central bank is in a much weaker position to intervene in the economy than it was when it could lend money to the state government to pay salaries and other, what have you. Okay. I don't think the central bank is in that position today.
Your own final thoughts?
I also agree with him. I think that we're in a very weak position. Also the same thing, the fiscal buffers are practically non-existent. The excess crude account is virtually empty. And what is even more, what worsens it is the fact that the other option you could have taken was to go the debt way, to borrow. But now it's not even an option because the debt is already so high, and government itself has realized it. And you notice that since 2017, they have been making conscious efforts to try to bring it down. So I think when they're straight, I actually don't know what to suggest to them other than cutting the already very low capital expenditure and then trying, like I mentioned earlier,
cutting recurrent expenditure, adjusting it. However, just like what you said, leakages.
It's leakages, yes.
Yeah.
Apart from cutting capital leakages, blocking the leakages however they can.
Okay. I feel like continuing this conversation, but of course we'll continue online. For those watching us online, watching our social media handles, you can continue the conversation on Twitter with us. It's really, it's more than a double whammy for Nigeria. You have coronavirus, you have border closure, you have China, you have oil price. So our own is more. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on the program. I've been speaking with Dr. Tochukwu Nwachukwu, the Chief Executive Officer at Pristine Consult, and Mr. Johnson Chukwu, the Chief Executive Officer at Carry Asset Management. Mr. Chukwu, thank you for joining us today. Definitely we'll continue this conversation all week because that's what we'll be watching. What else again are we going to be saying than watching the prices of commodities as well as oil and watching the steps that the government will be taking and analyzing and seeing what actions that will stem from the hard decisions that we need to take. But in case, in terms of surprise, the government should not be surprised. They would have done this as far back as yesterday. So on behalf of IMI team, I am Nancy Naji. Please join us again tomorrow. Be the best you can be the change you want to see. Don't forget to follow me on my social media handle. You can continue the conversation because the conversation is still online. All you need to do is to follow us on Moneyline AIT, and my handle is at Nancy Ilo. I'll see you all tomorrow, God willing. Bye now.